all is well today, and wherever you might find yourself. We did want to sit down and talk about the newest gun bill, which I will say, after you read this book, it's about 18 pages of nonsense that I've had to read here shortly, and they keep putting amendments on it. So we're going to have a little discussion point on 25003, and it's titled it's the Bill for an Act Concerning Prohibitive Activity Involving Semi-Automatic Firearms in Connection therewith Prohibiting the Manufacture, Distribution, Transfer, Sale, and Purchasing of Specific Semi-Automatic Firearms, and classifying a device that increases the rate of fire of a semi-automatic firearm as a dangerous weapon. All that being said, what it basically says is that they're going to stop you from having any type of, or transferring, or new purchases of any type of semi-automatic firearms throughout the state of Colorado. So I wanted to bring Sven in. Sven is our resident expert on firearms. He's a firearms dealer and has all kinds of information for you about this bill. But one of the biggest things that has occurred in this is that they want sheriffs to be more involved, and they want sheriffs to give you a license. So basically they want me to license you to carry on with your Second Amendment. And we just think it's disgusting to have to do so. The other part of it is it takes away your right for any semi-automatic handgun that's on the market except for a .22 pistol. Now, here's the issue with that. That means heirlooms. That means things that have been passed down through generations that maybe at some point you've decided you want to sell to someone else, or those investments that you've made for all these years, instead of buying gold and silver and putting it in the stock market, you put it in firearms because you thought that was a better investment. Those now go away. It's illegal for you to sell it anywhere within the state, which also means it'll flood the market outside the state, and it's going to be harder then to purchase any of these items or get any of these items. And actually, I don't know that you can. So, Sven, you want to talk a little bit about it?
I think when I read the 18 pages of this bill, what some of the things that really have stood out to me. One in particular, this is just another effective way of creating a registry within the state. And what I mean by that, this bill specifically allows the state to require what they are referring to as an eligibility card. The only way you're going to be able to get that card is if you submit to your local sheriff fingerprints, application, fees associated with that, and have a criminal background check completed to determine, one, if you're eligible to purchase a firearm, and it's solely up to the sheriff to make that determination. Once you actually receive this eligibility card, it is only good for 5 years. When 5 years expire, you have to go through the entire process again. What happens is, once you get the eligibility card, at that point you can now sign up for either hunter safety education, either a basic firearm safety course or an extended firearm safety course, all of which has to be completed before you're even allowed to make a purchase of a firearm. What I find very interesting in this bill is they don't necessarily provide a list of what is illegal and what is necessarily not legal. What the bill has described are 3 different types of semi-automatic weaponry: rifles, shotguns, and pistols, all of which that can have a detachable magazine. What bothers me is they do put a list here of 35 weapons in the bill that are actually in fact excluded from the bill. Most of which are semi-automatic weapons that use a detachable magazine and that are gas-operated systems, which goes against the whole purpose of the bill on banning these particular firearms unless the state has found you eligible to make that purchase. This really more or less forces the sheriff now to have to report to a governing body that actually will maintain this registry and those that are actually eligible to make these purchases. And the monies that go towards the fees that actually get looped back into the treasury, they're discretionary funds. The state can use them for whatever they want to use them. It doesn't go to anything beneficial. It doesn't do anything to help anybody in the state as a citizen. All it does is forces you to have to purchase your rights from the state, which you've been given to under the founders and the Constitution of this country. It's a shame. It's shenanigans.
It's shenanigans. And here's the thing is, we in no way endorse this bill whatsoever. I don't know that, I know the Sheriff's Association has taken a stance on this bill to say no. I know that the commissioners in the state have said no. You know, this is another, this identifies even more of the runaway train that our legislative body has become. If they really wanted to do something like this and do it right, it should go to the voters. It should not be sitting in a legislative office. The other thing is they didn't identify how much this was going to cost the state and all the sheriffs when they sent this through. The state's already in a 700 or 100,
1.3 billion.
yeah,
I looked it up this
$1.3
morning.
billion dollars in debt as it is. What they don't tell you on this bill is that it's going to cost you as taxpayers to have to fund this thing, because I'm going to need at least 10 more people to deal with this. So we're looking at a minimum of another $500,000 to an unfunded mandate that the state's going to push forward. You know, and the bill producers on this, one has just left the legislative body because she's in trouble for some other issues. So this is wrote by people that really don't care about what you think, that only care about what their selfish mechanisms are. And unfortunately for that, it's hard, but it is destroying this country and the state. What I don't understand is why we can't think of these things by common sense means. I get it if they want to say no fully automatic machine guns, right? But it's already in state law, so why are we worried about it? And the other side of it too is what this bill does is it creates way more gun owners now to be criminals, because people are not going to turn these weapons in. They're not going to, because that'll be the next step. It'll be to create some form of identification of who you are. And then at some point, the state is going to push more issues through this legislative body that says that we're going to take all those firearms away. Mark my words, that's really what they're after. And I hate as a sheriff to have to say that, but that's really what they're doing. So we are going to fight this tooth and nail. Well, I tell you what, this is another good one. We'll put out the guide to the directions on how to fight the bill, and really the different information in there on how to sign up to fight the bill. Because if your voice doesn't get heard on this bill, they're going to pass it. And they may pass it anyways, because now it's reached the House, and you never want to depend on the House to be your saviors for these types of things.
I mean, the vote that went from the Senate was 19 to 15. You know, there were
close.
some Democrats that wouldn't sign off on it, but it was enough to push it into the House, which has a bigger majority than what the Senate has, and there's a good likelihood that this could very well pass. I have to believe, and based on some of the readings that I've looked into this and the ongoings of how this has been progressing through our legislature, the governor isn't completely sold on the bill itself and has some of it being watered down in terms of how some of this is going to be dealt with. Their argument is going, this is not a ban on weaponry. All they're saying is that they want people to be responsible. The issue that I have with this is the legislatures are looking at every single one of us as citizens, saying that we're stupid enough that we can't figure out how to actually exercise our Second Amendment right to be able to own and possess a firearm. Our Second Amendment provides us that right in terms of having the right to keep and bear arms. What this is doing is it's removing that right, and it's requiring us to have to go through several different stages just to be able to purchase that right in order for us to have something if we want to defend our homes, defend our own persons. The government is taking that away from us, or they're attempting to do so. The issue that I have here, much like you said, the fees. The governing body of all of this is going to be CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They are the ones that will establish the fees for the classes. They're the ones that will establish the fees for somebody entering your information into a system, specifically stated in this bill. So you're going to have several different tiers of fees that you're going to have to pay as a citizen in order to get your right back to be able to purchase a firearm. Like I said before, the problem on this, it has an expiration date. That is only for as long as you've paid for it, 5 years, and then you have to start all over again.
Well, and something to understand too, when they talk about watering down a bill, here's what happens. And I've had this happen before, where we got amendments put on bills to change them and make them watered down. But when they hit the body on the floor of the House can strip those amendments away and go with the original bill. So that is not a guarantee that those will actually go through. And the sad part is once again, that is another way of doing another gun grab, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And as a sheriff, I would tell you, you need to go out and get involved with the NRA and then the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Association. I think that anything you can do now to protect your livelihood, because if you're a firearms dealer, you're not going to have any more firearms to be selling. Those businesses are going to dry up, and actually they know that. That's a push to destroy the gun industry in Colorado. It's been that way for 8 years. And you also have to think too, Sven, and this is what's interesting to me. We have one of the highest crime rates in the United States now. We went from the lowest crime rate to the highest crime rate, but now we want to disarm our actual citizens that are doing it right. And then we also want to identify them as criminals, because that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to be a criminal. I'm going to be a criminal. It just is the way it is, right? Because you're labeled that way if you have a firearm. So my thought is you have to fight it. There is no watering down. Fight this thing. And we'll just see where it goes from there.
Yeah. And this is just an addition to the two previous bills that really are prohibitive in terms of any sort of firearm activity in the state. This toppled with a 6.5% excise tax that goes into effect April 1st. That was approved and that was voted on last legislative session. Goes on top of the additional restrictions now placed on federally licensed firearms dealers within the state, which disallows them from performing any sort of transactions of firearms unless they purchase an actual dealer's license through the state itself, which is double what a normal FFL license costs. That has to be paid every 3 years. And now, of course, the new CHP laws, which there is some differences between this most recently poorly written legislation that they're trying to enact in this new law in 003 that is in conflict with the CHP law. And I'm seeing that a lot between the different bills, that they're not all consistent with one another. They kind of bounce around. For example, for you to be able to get your eligibility card, you have to pass 90% on a written test in your basic firearm safety course. Whereas in the CHP, for you to be able to carry a weapon concealed, your written test only has to be 80%. They're putting a higher standard on the fact of you wanting to buy a gun than if you want to carry it concealed. Well, it's ignorance, and it's simply just not right.
Well, and here's the thing about this bill. They're trying to address too many things on the broad blanket of just this Firearm Act. And here's what I'm seeing with this. They're trying to tie it to mental health issues, to criminality. Well, neither of those two have anything to do with these firearm laws. We have a mental health crisis within this state that's not being taken care of because we're not funding it. Instead, we're funding this, we're funding immigration issues, we're funding all these other things that are precursors to what really need to be dealt with, which is the mental health side of things. And really what I found too is that all these bills, they try to blanket everyone at the same time.
Yep.
And it's sad because these are good law-abiding gun owners. And the other side, you're not going to change crime with this. Last year, they instituted having the box in the vehicle for firearms. All they're going to do is steal your box. I mean, it's one of the dumbest laws I've seen also, is it because those boxes are hard to disguise within a vehicle. So now, instead of me being able to hide it or do whatever I want because it's my own vehicle, I now have to put it in a locked storage case within a vehicle.
Yep.
That's nice, but rural Colorado's a little different. So is, honestly, Colorado's different, I think, in its thinking. I think people are just tired of having to pay for things out of pocket for these types of laws. They're unfunded mandates to you, and they're unfunded mandates for us, and they're unregulated and unenforceable for the most part. So, it is hard to deal with these things. But let you know, we are going to start doing more podcasts like this where we're talking about these things because it is kind of wild and crazy in Denver right now. There's new bills coming out every single day, and I was just having this discussion a little bit ago about a different bill that was dropped this morning on the floor. And when I say dropped it was put out so we can all see these things. So anyways, that's kind of where we're at, Tommy. It's a bright new day, I guess.
Yeah, well, SB 25-003 goes before the House Judiciary Committee on March at 1:30. So we would like to invite as many people as we can to testify against this bill, and we'll be putting out a guide as to how you can sign on or sign up to testify against the bill, and then maybe just some ideas of what this bill could really mean for you, the average person of rural Colorado, or just somebody who is not interested in having their Second and dancing very close to their Fourth Amendment rights violated.
I would highly, highly recommend that everybody get actively involved. Don't allow constituents of Denver, Denver County, and Boulder make a decision that's going to violate your constitutional right to own and bear arms.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for helping me out with this, and I appreciate it. But there you have it, Teller County. Check our Facebook site. We'll have that information out to you as soon as possible. Have a great day.